Welcome everybody to today's presentation. I'm happy that you carved out some time to join us today to hear more about this exciting research project that we've been working on. As I said, I'm joined today by Erica Carranza from CMB, Chadwick Martin Bailey. We're both so excited to share this with you today, and our agenda is pretty straightforward. I'll give a brief tee-up to basically why we decided to tackle this project before turning it over to Erica, who will walk you through the details of the research itself as well as our key takeaways. At that point, I'll go ahead and jump back in and share some information about a diagnostic tool that we've developed here leveraging the insights from Erica's research before leaving plenty of time at the end for that open discussion. As Randy said, if you have questions throughout the presentation, certainly submit them through the chat box if you want to. Otherwise, we're happy to answer whatever you send our way toward the end. So with that, let's go ahead and dig in. Really, though, to understand the purpose behind this research project, I think you need to understand a little bit more about me and where I work and what I do for leaders like you. As Randy said, I work for ITA Group, an engagement agency that's been in the business of engaging, educating, and reinforcing motivation in people for over 50 years. In recent years, we've expanded our capabilities through strategic acquisitions, including Chadwick Martin Bailey, the research firm that Erica works for, and who you'll hear from in a minute. By now, we have offices all over the map, but our headquarters and my home is in Des Moines, Iowa, where it is cold but not snowing, thank goodness. In my role as an insights and strategy leader, I really spend a lot of my time doing research, and that research is helping me to better understand and forecast the business and market trends that basically impact your lives. I want to know how what we develop for solutions can help you tackle those challenges and stay ahead of where we think that things are going. And so really by first taking the time to understand those forces, we find that we're able to really refine our offering to make sure that it's as relevant and capable of fitting your needs as possible. But I'm going to be honest. Lately, I have noticed a concerning trend, and it's that I think people are starting to lose hope in ever actually improving the state of engagement. And honestly, who could blame them? I think this estimate is pretty telling, but I also think that the $18 billion that companies are spending trying to engage talent is conservative in my estimation. That might be the financial impact, but think about the countless hours and time that people pour into just trying to improve employee engagement. But the fact remains that while companies are spending all of this time and money trying to do it, it's really not getting us there. The percentage of engaged employees worldwide hasn't changed for about a decade. Trust levels are dismal, to say it frankly. Less than half of global professionals feel like they trust the people that they work with and for. There's a disconnect happening between the image and the reality. So put yourselves in the shoes of a candidate interviewing. It's these people, and we find that less than 20% of employees feel that what they were pitched when they were interviewing for a job matches what their work experience is that they actually have day to day. And advocacy is increasingly difficult to achieve. Just 25% of employees say that they would recommend their organization, and just over half of employees feel like they can't be their authentic selves due to a lack of inclusivity in the workplace. But despite all of this, we at ITA remain committed to believing that engagement is possible and that we need to keep talking about it. We can't let these get us down and make us think that there really is no way to move beyond it. So put simply, we just needed to find a better way, and that was really what started this whole project for us. And so for us, what that looked like was basically trying to flip engagement on its head. We knew that more or less what we always thought we knew or what companies have traditionally been trying to do wasn't moving the needle. And we had all of that research that I just walked us through to prove to us that it wasn't really working all that well. And so we wanted to look at it from a completely different angle and knew we needed help to do it. And so that's really why we called on CMB, to help us think differently and, more importantly, to help us find the data that we needed to actually validate why clients needed to change the way that they were looking to tackle engagement too. And so after some preliminary discussion, we were connected up with Erica, who has been able to leverage her expertise in social psychology to really spearhead this research project. And so our goal was pretty direct. We all agreed that we wanted to develop a deep, unique, and actionable understanding of what actually motivates and retains employees. And we wanted it to be anchored in psychology and use advanced analytics so that it's something that we could actually help implement for our clients. We didn't want just another study where we told you about the dismal state of engagement today. And I want us to pause here to say that it's important to note that once we aligned on this objective, we at ITA were intentionally very distant during this process. And we did this for a couple of different reasons. The first was, regardless of the outcome, we wanted to believe in the integrity of the research that was being done. And we knew that having spent over 50 years in this industry, we already had presupposed ideas and notions about what we thought was the best way to do things. And so we didn't want any of that to color the research. And then ultimately, I just wanted validation that now was the time to breathe new life into the engagement conversation and not give up on it. I wanted to prove those people wrong that I started hearing say that engagement was a lost cause. And so at that point, we took a step back and really watched the research unfold. And so at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Erica, who will share a much deeper overview of what we really did with the research and what those key takeaways were.
Thank you, Christina. So we were excited to take on this research, particularly given the importance of this topic. As Christina mentioned, our goal was to gain a deep, actionable understanding of what motivates employees and to apply a psychological lens to this issue. So, and the point of applying a psychological lens to the issue, psychology helps us understand what motivates people. And employees are people. So a psychological lens can be incredibly valuable for organizations seeking to motivate and engage employees. So for our research, we conducted an online survey of nearly 1,500 full-time employees at mid to large-scale companies in the U.S. The company spanned a range of industries, and the employees also represented a range of demographics, of professional roles, and levels in their organizations. Basically, we were looking for a nice, big, representative sample of employees at mid to large-size U.S. companies. The survey topics covered a lot of ground, including the employee's profile, things like age, income, and tenure at the company, the company's profile, things like company size, the industry, the operating territories, compensation, the employee's compensation, so salary, bonus, health benefit, policies that impact the employee, things like flexibility to work from home, engagement initiatives that the company offered, like peer recognition programs, and the employee satisfaction with each and every one of those. The survey also measured employees' attitudes, perceptions, and emotions regarding the company. And there were a lot of questions measuring how well the company fulfills motivations for the employee that we know matter to people from a psychological standpoint. So things like experiencing positive emotions, understanding and expressing the self, enhancing self-esteem, achieving important goals, growing, learning, feeling a sense of control over your own destiny, feeling a sense of connection, feeling like you belong. And then we measured employees' engagement-related outcomes. So, for example, their satisfaction at the company, their advocacy for the company as a good place to work, and their intention to stay at the company both in the short term and the long term. As we expected, our findings underscore the importance of employee engagement. Here we're looking at employees who are satisfied at their company in the blue bars compared to employees who are dissatisfied in the orange. And you can see that satisfied employees are much more likely to act as ambassadors for the company by recommending it as a good place to work, are more willing to go outside their comfort zone for the company by learning new skills or taking on new responsibilities, and are less likely to be eyeing the exits. We also found that most organizations have room to improve on employee satisfaction. Only a third of employees say they're very satisfied at their company, 32%. Almost half are interested in exploring jobs at other companies, and over half say that they will leave their company eventually, 60%. A third say they'll leave within the next 12 months. So what keeps employees satisfied and engaged at their organization? Our results found that there are 3 types of psychological benefits that are key to driving employee engagement. Functional benefits, which are about what the employee wants to achieve and what the company helps them to accomplish. Emotional benefits, which are about how employees want to feel and how the company makes them feel. And identity benefits. Identity benefits are about who the employee wants to be and what working at the company says about them. They each play an important role, so I'm going to take a bit of time to describe each of these in turn. Functional benefits refers to employees' belief that their company facilitates professional growth and success while enabling a good work-life balance. And what you see on the right side of this slide is a summary of how we assess employees' perceptions of the functional benefits they get from their organization. It's an index that captures their feelings about their overall package of salary and benefits, how well the company enables work-life balance, how well it provides things that makes their lives easier and more convenient, and how much they feel it sets them up for success in achieving their professional goals. Emotional benefits for employees come from typical workdays that inspire more positive than negative emotions. And our approach to measuring this takes into account the 2 key dimensions that underlie all emotion, valence and activation. I'm going to put my psychologist hat on for a second here. Valence is good and bad, positive, negative. Activation is the amount of energy experienced with the emotion. So for example, if you feel sad, that's negatively valenced. It's also a low activation emotion. When you feel sad or depressed, you often feel immobilized. There's a kind of inertia to it. But if you feel angry, that's also negative in terms of valence, but anger is high activation. Anger involves more agitation, more of an approach than a withdrawal response. When you feel angry, often you want to do something about it, right? So the indices we developed to measure employees' emotional benefits capture all 4 of these quadrants. And finally, there are identity benefits. And there are 3 types of identity benefits. Personal identity benefits are about how much the company fuels the employee's pride and self-esteem, their self-expression, and their sense of belongingness and importance at the company. Social identity benefits are about how much employees identify with their leadership at the company and with their colleagues at the company. So it's about feeling like the people you work with are your people, an appealing tribe that you want to be a part of. And finally, cultural identity benefits. Cultural identity benefits come from feeling aligned and comfortable with the company, mission, values, norms, traditions, and so on. So when we measure this, we measure how much the employee feels like there is a clear company culture at their organization, and then how much they like the company culture. So when employees get these psychological benefits from working at their company, they're much more satisfied and engaged. This table is showing differences in engagement among employees who are high versus low on our indices, measuring the extent to which they get each psychological benefit from their company. The green arrows indicate significant differences between the 2 groups. So you can see, for example, that 95% of employees who index high on functional benefits feel satisfied at their company, compared to only 28% of employees who index low on functional benefits. That means that employees high on functional benefits are 3 times more likely to be happy at their company. And the same holds for each of the other psychological benefits you see here. Employees high on the benefit are 3 times more likely to feel satisfied compared to those low on the benefit. And that same pattern holds across engagement metrics. So below that, you can see the results for likelihood to recommend as a place to work and intent to stay at the company. Same pattern holds. Feeling like you get each of these kinds of benefits is associated with much more company satisfaction than feeling like you don't get any of these benefits. And it also translates to retention. Employees high on each psychological benefit are much less likely to be planning to leave. So we then wanted to understand which of these benefits was most important. So the chart we're going to show you now shows the results of a statistical model testing the relative importance of each benefit in predicting employee engagement. The importance scores you see here are calibrated such that the most important item, in other words, the strongest predictor of employee engagement, gets a score of 100, and all other scores are scaled relative to that. So if there were something with a score of 50, it would be half as important as the thing that gets a score of 100. So you can see here that personal identity benefits are the top driver with the importance score of 100. And emotional benefits are also very important, followed by functional, cultural identity, and social identity benefits. Some companies tend to focus their employee engagement efforts on functional benefits, right? Through things like bonuses, flexible work arrangements, convenient perks like on-site childcare, snacks. And some companies are looking to improve employees' emotional benefits too, for example, with wellness programs or fun perks like game rooms. What's interesting about this is that functional and emotional benefits are still just part of the story. Personal identity benefits are even more important. We also saw strong validation that these 5 psychological benefits are critical to employee loyalty. Regression models that we ran found that, taken together, these 5 benefits explain 70% of the variance in employee engagement, which is very high. Our analytics team did a happy dance when we saw this. Clearly, these psychological benefits are very important to employees. And yet, we found that companies have a lot of room to improve their delivery of each of these psychological benefits to employees. So here's just one example. This is in the realm of personal identity benefits. Only 25% strongly agree with the sentiment that working at my company makes me feel good about myself. So that means that relatively few employees see their company as providing a strong source of self-esteem. We know that this is a really important thing, though, in terms of keeping employees happy at an organization. So enhancing personal identity benefits and the other psychological benefits should be a top priority for any company seeking to inspire stronger employee engagement. So we'll come back to the psychological benefits in a few minutes. Next, we wanted to understand how employees see the different types of initiatives companies might consider as ways to improve engagement. So we tested 21 initiatives in the survey, things like what you see here on this slide, just some examples. And for each one, employees rated how much they appreciate the initiative if it's offered by their company, or how much they would appreciate it if it's something that's not offered at their company. And then we factor analyzed that data in order to understand the groups of initiatives that employees see as highly similar. So it was kind of like peeking into employees' heads and seeing how they mentally classify the different kinds of engagement initiatives that companies can offer. By doing this, we found that from employees' point of view, there are 6 primary types of engagement initiatives: company communications, company-sponsored events, recognition programs, incentive programs, professional development programs, and wellness programs. Interestingly, lots of employees say their company provides initiatives in each of these categories. You can see there in that first column, percents or 70% and above, basically, of employees who say their company offers something within each of these territories. Many fewer say that they're satisfied with those initiatives. So, for example, 80% say their company has a recognition program in place. Only 34% say their company has a recognition program that they like. But when companies do provide these kinds of initiatives in ways that satisfy employees, it makes a difference. Execution matters, and you can see that here. Employees who get to experience these kinds of initiatives at their company and are satisfied with those initiatives are much more satisfied at their company overall compared to employees who aren't satisfied with the initiative or whose companies don't offer anything of that kind. So engagement programs, when executed well, are very effective tools for driving loyalty. Why is that? Like when these different types of initiatives work, what are they doing for employees? That brings us back to the psychological benefits. To understand how the different types of initiatives work, we ran a path analysis looking at the interrelationships between the 6 types of company initiatives, the 5 psychological benefits, and the desired outcome, employee engagement. This is a schematic of the results. So you can see that personal identity, emotional, and functional benefits each have a direct impact on employee engagement. Social and cultural identity benefits are important ways of reinforcing personal identity benefits. And personal identity and functional benefits together feed into emotional benefits. And that the psychological benefits as a whole, those 5 psychological benefits together, mediate the relationships between the company initiatives on the left and employee engagement. In other words, engagement initiatives are only as good as they are effective at driving the psychological benefits for employees. And employee satisfaction with an engagement initiative is going to be a sign that that initiative is successfully delivering one or more of those key psychological benefits. The other thing we see here that I want to point out is that the combination of initiatives right for a given company will depend on that company's current strengths and weaknesses in delivering each psychological benefit. And that's because each type of initiative is effective at improving a subset of the psychological benefits. For example, look at recognition programs. Recognition programs are good at driving personal identity benefits. You can note there the orange line, the direct link. So a recognition program could be game-changing for companies whose employees lack a strong sense of pride in what they do. Companies weak on cultural or social identity benefits would also gain from a recognition program, but would also want to consider leveraging internal company communications and company-sponsored events. Whereas companies weak on functional benefits would get better results from professional development or incentive programs. Interestingly, wellness programs have a more indirect effect on employee loyalty than the other initiative types. The number of companies offering health and wellness programs is on the rise, so clearly there's a belief out there that investing in employees' health and wellness will pay off in their commitment to the organization and maybe even their ability to manage stress and be productive. But in terms of employee engagement, our results suggest that wellness programs work when they're seen as providing what other types of programs offer. So for example, when wellness programs are seen as a form of employee recognition or as an incentive. So companies may be better served by choosing engagement initiatives with a more direct impact on the psychological benefits that they want to improve. What that past model also suggests is that different types of engagement initiatives delivered in combination can be particularly strong because, again, they each kind of operate on a unique set of psychological benefits. And that turns out to be true when we dig into the data. Here's an example. We found that 40% of companies have a strong company-wide communications program. In other words, communications that their employees evaluate positively. Fewer, 28%, have strong company communications and a strong recognition program. Even fewer have strong company communications, a strong recognition program, and great company-sponsored events. But we see employee satisfaction increase when each type of initiative is added to the mix. So on the next slide, we can see employee satisfaction going from 57% extremely satisfied on the left up to 72% when all 3 types of programs are offered together in a way that satisfies employees. So overall, we see that when executed well, engagement initiatives give employees compelling reasons to stay and to embrace their role in their organization day to day. What we learned is that these types of initiatives work by enhancing intangible but powerful psychological forces that ultimately drive engagement, in particular functional, emotional, and identity benefits. And they each play a critical role. In fact, identity benefits are particularly important. Plus, our results suggest that there's no one-size-fits-all solution to the challenge of improving employee loyalty. Each company's roadmap to optimizing engagement should ideally be tailored to improving the psychological benefits that lag for that company's employees. So to be strategic in their use of engagement initiatives, companies can start by measuring their current performance on the key psychological benefits, by identifying relative areas of strength and weakness, and then by implementing initiatives tailored to addressing their weaknesses. So in this way, they can narrow their focus and their resources to the kinds of engagement programs likely to work the best. So with that, I will hand it back to Christina.
Thank you, Erica. Wow, every time I hear you present it, like I take away new takeaways as well. And I think it's fascinating, but I'm sure hopefully all of you are feeling the way that I did when I first heard it, which is, so there's hope. So there is a method to all of this, and there is a way for us to figure out how we can help people evaluate what it is that they can and should be doing. I think it's really important to just emphasize a couple of the points that Erica made, which are, just how important it is that organizations are actually taking the time to measure the current performance on their benefits. I'm a firm believer that most companies are doing really good things already. The challenge is that a lot of times they don't know which of those good things are actually engaging and motivating their people. And so they don't know how to make those choices about how to introduce new or different things. She also spoke about identifying areas of strength versus weakness. I think this is really where we can step in and be strategic about what it is that a company wants to focus on, because there's kind of two camps of thought. You either look at the areas where you're weak and you double down efforts on those to try to make up for that, or look at the areas where you're strong already and what additional work can you do to help bolster that and further support in those areas that naturally are coming well to your organization. And then the final thing that I thought was just really interesting is, how logical a lot of this sounded. And that was kind of our reaction when we first heard it was, wow, so this all makes sense and this all sounds really reasonable, but it's still new and it's still different, and it's still, you can look at that pathing schematic for hours and try to evaluate, okay, well, I think I need this or I think I need that, but how do you really know? And so that was really what took us to the point of realizing we needed to take this a step further in order to make it a really digestible process for our clients. And so to ease that learning curve, we developed what we call EngageFX, and it is an engagement diagnostic tool. So in its simplest form, EngageFX is an engagement survey, but it is not just another employee engagement survey. I want to emphasize that. To be fair, I actually think a lot of the issues that we've all been struggling with to improve engagement for years now actually stem from years of doing engagement surveys that just didn't go nearly far enough. They didn't have the actionable insights. There was no roadmap for the future. There was no way to prioritize what you were doing. And that lack of focus that resulted from just getting kind of this data dump that you don't usually know what to do with is what I think has really impaired some of our efforts in the past. And so I felt very strongly when developing this product that EngageFX couldn't go down that path. And so we worked very closely with Erica during this part to really help distill out what were those most important questions. The survey that we had initially done for our full research panel took people on average 22 minutes to complete, and that's completely unrealistic to expect for typical employees of an organization. And so knowing that, we really wanted to use the most important questions to collect feedback from your employees that could really help us pinpoint how this amazing research on personality and social psychology could help you find that focus and help you, evaluate how it is that your organization is performing today. And so once we go through that process with a client, then we really work to prioritize. We partner and help make decisions based on data and not guesswork. I'm a pretty analytical person at heart, and I love the ability that I can, validate what we're seeing against our benchmark data. I can, it's no longer just about making assumptions or relying on gut feeling. We're able to really bring this data-driven approach to the table, and that's something that I think a lot of us have been missing when trying to figure out how do we improve engagement and how do we retain those great people. And so after doing that, that's really when, we sit down and we say, okay, here are our primary recommendations and insights, knowing that, this information is incredibly valuable, though, to you. Part of EngageFX actually includes a tool that is for each organization to keep. It's an interactive dashboard that really helps you dive deeper into those results, to do that custom filtering and sorting so that you can identify maybe there's one department in your organization that is just killing it on personal identity. They're awesome at it, and it's an area that's lagging elsewhere. It helps you find some of those areas where you can do that deeper digging on your own to figure out how do we scale that? How do we help take what's working or what's not and then normalize that? And so I could gush about it for a while. I'm really excited about the potential of it and what we're able to do with it. But I wanted to actually take just a few minutes to walk you guys through a few screenshots of what the tool looks like itself and what this dashboard is capable of revealing and how that is supported by this research. I mean, it is the underlying foundation of this product. And so you can see here that on the home page, it's, we've tried to make it as easily digestible as possible to both high-level insights as well as overall psychological benefit performance. And because we know how hard it can be to get employee feedback, we actually offer the option to put in custom questions as well so that those can be incorporated. So let's say that there are a few really important questions that you've been monitoring for years. Those can be built in so that it's just really a seamless transition. Throughout the dashboard, your results will always be compared to the benchmark, so you'll never be left wondering and questioning if your organization is in a good place or maybe has room for improvement, because sometimes these stats can feel like, well, I feel like 60% is good until you realize that the benchmark was like 80%, and you're like, oh, okay. So never leave you in question there. And in addition, we always track everything back to the two most significant questions that we know from the research ultimately led to engagement, which was, is that employee willing to be a brand advocate, and what is their overall satisfaction level with your organization? So for a quick glimpse into what's working and what isn't, you have the option to compare results against all psychological benefits, and so you're really able to see at a glance how you compare to the benchmark, where you're ahead, where you're right lined up with that benchmark, and where maybe there's some lagging performance. And then to ensure that you can really efficiently understand root causes of those underlying performance issues, we give you more details too. So we don't just stop at that surface level. And so this really allows you to gain that deeper perspective into what's actually going on. I love this slide here, for example. This is where visualized results can help you clearly see how your organization's typical emotions compare to the benchmark results. So in this one, we have a sample client's data that's really showing in the green side the typical emotions that are felt, both positive and negative, by employees. And then in the orange side is really the benchmark results. And so you're able to see that there are some pretty stark differences in terms of where certain emotions are more pronounced than others within that employee base. And as I mentioned, we want to be sensitive to each organization's preferences around employee survey frequency. I think now more than ever, organizations are all over the map in terms of how often they are surveying employees, pinging them, that kind of thing. And so we really wanted to make sure that we could support and nurture that as well. And so our standard offering does include the integration of those custom questions that will enable you to either compare results to surveys you've previously done, or alternatively, you could just ask them different questions. this is an example of a client who really wanted to know more about their onboarding process and outcomes, and so they were able to bundle that in. So again, you're only sending one total survey out to your employees and not inundating them with too many one-offs. And so, really from start to end, this is the process of the engagement diagnostic. We start with that pre-diagnostic consultation, administer it, analyze it, and interpret it against the benchmark data. And then, most importantly, we help you understand what all of that means, help you develop that roadmap to what the future can hold in terms of areas of opportunity or areas to focus. And, throughout this, I want you to just know, this is about just letting you know that we're here to help. We thought that as logical as the research was, it was also groundbreaking in a way. And it's hard to know what to do with that after you listen to all of the great insights from Erica. How do you put that into action? And so this was our hope with developing EngageFX. And so with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Randy.
Thank you so much, Erica, Christina, for going through all of that research. That is a lot of interesting stuff, and I think you've shared quite a bit of new and interesting ideas for all of us to think about. So thank you so much for both of you being here to do that today. We are going to open things up for a Q&A session here for the last couple minutes of the hour. If you do have any questions, please go ahead and submit them now right in that chat box on the page. We have had a few questions come in already as well, so we'll get to as many of those as we can in the time we have left. The first couple questions are a little similar, so I'm going to kind of combine these into one. Whoever wants to take this first, maybe you, Erica, might be the first one to answer, but folks are wondering about, some of these survey results and how they might differ based on something like, a generation or a tenure at an organization.
Yeah, so that is an excellent question. It is something that we looked at in this research, and we have actually a fuller research report that gets into some of the details of these different cuts. Millennials are, of course, an interesting and wonderful group. We love them, I say. I'm a Gen Xer. They're even harder to keep engaged. The norms are different for them, and now I'm kind of drawing on other things that we know, that it's becoming more normative to not spend that much time at any given organization, and that's part of the challenge here, of course, too, is to retain your great people. So it's a bit harder with the younger generations. That being said, one of the things I really like about this research is that it shows something that I think from a psychological perspective really rings true for me, and that is that people are people. So these 5 psychological benefits, 3 main territories of psychological benefits, are just as powerful at for each generation, at each level in the organization. Basically, every way we sliced and diced the population, we found these are the things they care about. If you really want to motivate people, right, this is what you should really focus on. And again, I think that resonates with me as a psychologist, that identity is really important, and it's important to everyone. Emotion is important. It's important to everyone.
Anything to add there, Christina?
Definitely, yeah. The reference to tenure, too, I thought was very interesting. We actually saw some fascinating trends in terms of tenure. As a thank you to everybody that attended after this, we'll be sending out a white paper that we actually have just developed that dives into tenure specifically, and how across the board in all of the psychological benefits, we do see a decline after what we kind of call, it's kind of the proverbial honeymoon period. Basically anybody who's at least a year in, but sometime in that 1 to 3 year range, we see a dip in every single psychological benefit and how they feel about those. And so tenure is a very interesting factor in all of this as well.
Great, thank you. Next question that came in here is regarding engagement surveys. And given that you guys are using kind of a diagnostic process, maybe you can address that as well. But the question is, what is a good or a target response rate for something like an engagement survey to really give you a good picture of what's actually going on?
I can jump in here. You know, I'm going to be honest, though, we do have the diagnostic. You know, with that, ideally, you're looking to get a pretty representative sample. So I would say target at a minimum, maybe a 70 to 80% response rate on that. As far as broadly with surveying and depending on what that is, that's really not our core business. And so I would hate to say something misleading there.
Great, thank you. All right, we've got questions, all kinds of questions rolling in the chat here. So this question is, I think I'll send this one over to Erica first, and then Christina, if you want to chime in. Who is more likely to benefit an organization? Would that be a modestly engaged yet highly productive employee? Or the opposite, a highly engaged but only modestly productive employee?
That's a really interesting question. I think it's tough to answer. What I would want to know is what the correlation is between engagement and productivity, and what the definition is of productivity, and also the relationship between that and tenure, right? Because when you first start an organization, you might be highly engaged but not all that productive. And as you train up, you become more productive. But as Christina mentioned, we do see a waning of engagement within those first few years. If you can get somebody to 7 years, then what we find is they're likely to stay. So there's almost like a magic number in terms of tenure of getting them to 7 years. I think that my guess would be that the correlation between engagement and productivity is such that you get better productivity with higher engagement. So increasing engagement is a win-win. But Christina, you've had so much experience in this space. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that as well.
Yeah, I would say I'm probably more in line with where Erica is going. I think the key is that productivity is something that has been shown to improve with engagement levels. And I would guess that you likely have a much larger percentage of your workforce that is in that maybe more moderate area. So you've got a lot more opportunity depending on how you look at it. And so I would say that's probably where I would think it would be best to apply the most focus, but I'm sure it varies by organization.
Great. That was a tough question. Thanks for taking a stab at it, both of you. And thank you to Phil for submitting that one. Let's take a look back at the research with this next question here. And I'd love to hear from both of you, whoever wants to chime in first. When it comes to the results of this engagement research that you did, what were some of the most surprising or unexpected things that you uncovered?
So I would say from my perspective, in many ways the results were in line with what I expected in terms of psychological drivers. So for example, we know from academic research and from the applied research that we do at CMB that identity is a strong motivating force for people in all kinds of situations. So it wasn't surprising to see that engagement with something as important as work is identity driven. What I found more surprising was the role of wellness programs. I expected wellness programs to have a more direct link to the psychological benefits, and particularly emotional benefits. My hypothesis was that there would be a direct link there. So I was surprised when there wasn't a direct link between wellness programs and emotional benefits. But then when I reflected on my own experiences, I feel like it made sense. So for example, I spent some time working at American Express in their insights department, and Amex had some excellent wellness programs. The one I remember best was a program where if we got 10,000 steps a day for a certain period of time, and they gave us all little pedometers, we'd get extra money added to our health savings accounts. And I saw that as contributing to my functional benefits. 10,000 steps a day, like in New York City, it's hard not to get 10,000 steps a day. So, it was just a matter of like putting on the pedometer and recording my steps. So that program to me was just more money. It was just more money for me, basically. But I was already really happy with Amex in terms of functional benefits. That was already a strength. And even though the program itself was a form of recognition for employees of the company overall, including myself, it wasn't nearly as meaningful or as motivating to me as the forms of recognition that I received for my work and my contributions through recognition programs that Amex had in place. And so in terms of driving personal identity benefits for me, the wellness programs, good as they were, paled in comparison to the recognition programs. And so, when that path model, when we first were looking at that path model, I was like, whoa, what's going on with wellness programs? But then in reflecting on my own life, I was like, oh yeah, this makes sense. So that was surprising to me, though.
How about you, Christina?
So I'd say definitely kind of the piece we'll be following up with about that reality slump that we noticed that kicks in. And then I would say the other thing that I really dug into and gravitated toward was, we asked a lot of questions about basically self-esteem and pride. So are you proud to tell people that you work for the organization you work for, and do you feel good about yourself and doing the work that you do? And I thought it was fascinating to see that generally those measures were driven more by kind of the function of your job. So some of the slicers we looked at were managers were actually much more likely to have higher ratings of self-esteem and of pride than non-managers. Same thing with client-facing roles. I think maybe tied to the purpose that they are able to draw directly from the client interactions that they have. They tended to have much higher self-esteem and pride levels. But interestingly, income and level within the organization didn't really have a strong correlation. And so that reinforced for me that, it's more about the job that you're doing and how you're doing it than it is necessarily some of those traditional demographics that we maybe have equated with self-esteem or pride.
Awesome. Great insight. Thank you. This next question, I think, is referring specifically to your diagnostic tool, Christina, so I'll send this one over to you. The question is, do you use static pool analysis when comparing survey results from year to year? So do you see how the results are changing for each exact same employee, or is it more anonymous than that?
So this is a brand new product for us in market, so we haven't done an annual refresh for any of our clients, but definitely there would be a comparative evaluation in terms of trying to make sure that everything is progressing as it should. Something else that we've looked into as well is actually including like a pulse survey component of the diagnostic that then could be administered throughout the year in that interim period, so that you can see maybe there's one particular identity benefit or psychological benefit that you really wanted to focus on, and we could track that for comparative purposes as well.
And how long does it take an individual to go through the diagnostic process?
For an individual participant to take it, it kind of depends on how many custom questions you add, but standard out of the box, our goal was to have it be about a 5 to 7 minute process.
And then one final question just about the diagnostic tool. Is that something that has to be used kind of organization-wide, or is that something that you can use, maybe in a smaller department or a function just to get a sense of what's going on in a particular part of the organization? What are some of those options?
Yeah. I'd say ideally it'll be organization-wide, and I think that that's because there are so many subcultures that exist within an organization itself. You really are missing an opportunity by not surveying your entire population. because that'll help you see some of those bright spots that I had mentioned previously, like, maybe there's one region that is really doing amazing in one of the psychological benefits, but the others are not, and it'll help you really kind of pinpoint and clarify where some of those areas of strength and opportunity are.
Awesome. Erica and Christina, thank you so much for being here this afternoon. We are going to wrap up the webcast for now. I know there were a few more questions about some of the finer points of the data, especially regarding the dip around that tenure time. So when you get the full report, we'll pass those questions on to our presenters today, and then you'll have all of that data at your fingertips to look through as well after the webcast is over. So I just want to wrap up now and with another big thank you to our sponsor today, ITA Group, for making this webcast possible. Also, for all of our HCI members, your credits for attending today's webcast can be found in your My HCI transcript, so be sure to take a look there within 24 hours for your HRCI and SHRM recertification credit. We appreciate all of you taking this hour out of your afternoon to join us today, and we will see all of you again on another webcast. Have a great day, everyone.